Hiya, homie. Welcome to the Reclaimed Woman, the podcast that's part healing circle, part nervous system decoder, and part thank God it is not just me, mom chat. I'm Jessica, mom, cycle breaker, holistic family guide, recovering overthinker and people pleaser, and someone who has definitely felt like a bad mom more times than I would love to put on public record. Around here, we go way deeper than parenting tips. We talk about what's happening underneath the meltdowns and the chaos, yours and theirs. The overstimulation, the shame spirals, the childhood wounds that sneak into your parenting, the emotional load that makes you feel like you are drowning, and the parts of you that are trying so freaking hard to hold everything together without a village. This isn't the place for perfect moms. This is the place for real ones, human beings. For the women who are trying to break cycles, build a healthier foundation for her family, and actually reclaim herself in the process, even when it feels messy, confusing, and downright overwhelming and uncomfortable. If you've been carrying everything alone, questioning yourself, or quietly wondering if you're failing, you are not. You're overwhelmed and maybe even burnt out, and you are in the exact right place.
Yeah.
Why can't I just get it together? Why is it every time I take my kids out, I feel like it's the most taxing job just to get
Yeah.
everyone dressed
Yeah.
and go to the car? Hiya, homie. Welcome to the Reclaimed Woman, the podcast that's part healing circle, part nervous system decoder, and part thank God it is not just me, mom chat. I'm Jessica, mom, cycle breaker, holistic family guide, recovering overthinker and people pleaser, and someone who has definitely felt like a bad mom more times than I would love to put on public record. Around here, we go way deeper than parenting tips. We talk about what's happening underneath the meltdowns and the chaos, yours and theirs. The overstimulation, the shame spirals, the childhood wounds that sneak into your parenting, the emotional load that makes you feel like you are drowning, and the parts of you that are trying so freaking hard to hold everything together without a village. This isn't the place for perfect moms. This is the place for real ones, human beings. For the women who are trying to break cycles, build a healthier foundation for her family, and actually reclaim herself in the process, even when it feels messy, confusing, and downright overwhelming and uncomfortable. If you've been carrying everything alone, questioning yourself, or quietly wondering if you're failing, you are not. You're overwhelmed and maybe even burnt out, and you are in the exact right place. Hey, real quick, before we get into this episode, I just wanted to give you a little bit of context that this conversation is from the early days of the podcast, when it was still mom mentality and hardcore home, back when things kind of leaned more into primarily the parenting side of things. And I was still figuring out myself and the entire process of what I wanted for the podcast and for my business. So I am bringing it back though, because it totally belongs in this new era, because the story that you're going to hear is exactly why I've broadened and shifted. It's literally about women healing and evolving and overcoming something hard and reclaiming pieces of themselves as they go through these journeys. So even if the conversation is mostly rooted in the motherhood side and showing up as a mom, it's very much about the hurdles that these women have overcome. And so as you listen to it, I want you to listen for those layers of nervous system stuff, identity shifts, mindset, the emotional resilience, pressures, stories that we're telling ourselves, and all of the strength that goes into rebuilding yourself and raising tiny humans. This episode still matters. It's still powerful, and it absolutely belongs here. So let's get into it. Welcome to a very special episode of the Mom Mentality Podcast, where today we're going to kind of peel back the curtain on the raw and real and often unseen struggles of motherhood through the lens of ADHD and perfectionism, all amidst the whirlwind of the holiday season. With us is the incredibly insightful Ashley O. We're going to leave it at that because I do not want to butcher her name and I can't seem to get it together. She is a fellow parent coach, a mother to 3 wonderfully active boys, and a passionate advocate for mental health and ADHD awareness. Ashley's journey to motherhood was marked by stark challenges of comparison, perfectionism, and the isolating feeling of struggling in silence. However, her path took a transformative turn with a dual diagnosis of ADHD for both her oldest son and herself. This redefined her understanding of personal battles and breakthroughs. Together, we're going to dive deep into the heart of early motherhood struggles and the momentous journey towards an ADHD diagnosis, and how this journey reshapes the lens through which we view perfectionism, especially in the glare of holiday expectations. Ashley shares her invaluable insights on advocating for yourself and your child, strategies to manage sensory overload, and the profound importance of self compassion during this festive chaos. Ashley, we are so grateful to have your openness, your wisdom, your unwavering spirit, and everything else about you on our podcast. To our listeners, remember, you're not alone in this journey. So let's get into this story and you can understand more of the ins and outs of ADHD and how that's affecting motherhood. So, can you tell us a little bit about the specific challenges that you encountered during your first years of motherhood?
Yeah, so first off, I have 3 boys. I had 3 boys in 5 years. So, like, I think for anyone, that was
Oh,
a
wow.
lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, but especially for me, I able to overcome my challenges by, like, my skills, my knowledge, maybe some anxiety, but overall, I was able to do it. But this was different. I was overwhelmed all the time, very emotional. I felt like I was the only one struggling this much. Everyone has, like, the motherhood stuff, but the
Right.
the struggles just felt so extreme, and I just felt, like, misunderstood as well. I feel like with all the people who had kids, my family, they would give me well-meaning advice, but it just made me feel worse, like I was broken and something was wrong. So, that's just, like, the underlying feeling I always felt was that something was wrong with me, and that's why this was so hard. I was the reason that this was challenging. I just also remember feeling like I wanted to escape. So I remember, obviously you have those crazy nights when you're having your kids wake up all the time.
Right.
Sleep challenges with ADHD is a real thing. So all that kind of stuff with my kids. And I just remember like losing my mind on my kids sometimes, like in the middle of the night, like it was really, really bad. So, and then I also remember just like a crippling anxiety when we need to like go out to do something because I was just like, all right, what are all the scenarios that are going to happen? Like, is he going to run away? Is this going to
Right.
happen? Like, is he going to be able to socialize with other kids? Like, just all the constant chatter in my brain was just a lot. And I think for me, even I got to a point where I was like, all right, how can I escape this? Like, I never thought about necessarily harming myself, but I was like, if I
Right.
get into a small car accident, I'm going to go to the hospital for a while and I can get a break. Like, that's the kind of thought I felt, right? And
Yeah, that movie. That movie, Bad Moms, when she's like, sometimes I just think about the vacation. It's a very real
it
thing.
is so real. Yeah, it was like and I remember hearing years later another mom in a group I was in said that exact same thing, and I just felt so understood and seen. I just didn't ever feel that during those periods of time. That was, I think,
Right.
my biggest struggle was I was struggling and no one got it and no one was like, "This isn't you. This is just
Right.
what you're dealing with. This is untreated ADHD. This is all those things." Like, no one really did that for me, not anybody, right? So I think that was really very hard for me. Like, those would be some of the most difficult moments that I could sort of lay out.
Kind of like shame spiral. Cause then when you think stuff like that, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I even thinking? Like,
Yeah.
why can't I just be a normal mom and
Exac
do the normal things? Like, I should be
exactly.
happy. I shouldn't feel like this. And of course,
Exactly.
the shooting on yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I totally
Exactly.
resonate with that.
Exactly. So, just the
Yeah.
constant back and forth with that, and yeah, like, I think honestly my identity was just so jumbled up, I didn't even know who I was anymore, it was a lot, and I just
Right.
was in that survival mode for a long time. I honestly feel like this is probably the first time in my life where I'm not feeling like that all the time, like, and it's been a journey to get here.
So specifically thinking back on those moments and those thought processes in your
Mhm.
day-to-day, I guess, routines, what would you say were the most difficult moments for you during that time? And like, how did you handle those situations as you were going?
Yeah, I think anytime we had to hang out with other kids, like when I had
Mhm.
other around other people, that was one of my more difficult moments because again, I think it was like that perception of like, I'm a very open person, but I still
Mhm.
felt the judgment from
Mhm.
people about what my kid was doing. I felt scared because again, I had someone who was a runner, right? He was all about
Right.
elopement. He's like, how can I escape any situation? And then there's more than one of them and all that kind of
Right.
thing. So I think for me, it was like I was always trying to pre-plan everything that could happen because that's how I did it in the past, right? In the past, I had just been able to overplan things and
Right.
I could overcome it with all that kind of stuff and it wasn't working anymore. So I think that's where like the struggles were most evident was
Right.
like when I was trying to use those skills, it was like these really overwhelming moments and they didn't work anymore. And that's when I
Right.
could go into like the shame spiral of.
Right.
it's me. I am the problem, those kind of things, so and just the sensory stuff too, like, with my kids, like, they're very like, my oldest is a sensory seeker, like, as a baby, he needed to be, like I'm talking, like, you would have to jump up and down to rock him, just extremeness.
That's like my middle.
Sound machine in his ear had to be so loud, I'm like, he probably has hearing loss, like, just crazy stuff like that, that I was like, "This I don't think this is normal," but those were struggles, like, always trying to figure out how I can do this for him without like, ignoring all my needs at that point, right?
Right.
I was just trying to
Right.
survive with trying to make them somewhat happy and normal.
Right. Quote unquote normal. People talk about midlife crises and stuff, but really becoming a mom is like that identity crisis in
Yeah,
itself. And a lot of people don't talk about that. And so much of our society is based around like moms give everything and they have to be the last person.
yeah,
And, I mean, not even just moms, because I was raised by my dad and his was very similar. Like you work all the time, make sure that your
mhm,
kids' needs are met, and even though he couldn't handle certain needs, he knew he could always make sure there was food on the table, always make sure like we had
yeah,
certain things. And he was like dead last on that
yeah,
like totem pole. And yes, your kids definitely need to come first in a lot of ways. But if you don't take care of yourself and you don't know how to take care of yourself, or you don't have that support system, it makes
mhm,
it very hard. And then you end up lashing out even when you don't want to
yeah.
because you're like depleted.
Yeah, you're done, exactly, you have
Yeah, but
nothing
there's
left.
like that deep belief that this is just what you do. That's how it
Yeah.
works. That parenthood.
Yeah, and I've even through just starting my coaching journey as well, I feel like I have seen it's like something is going to happen in your life to sort of push you towards that change. If you're going to make the change in your life, if you're going to make the
Right.
change to not just shame yourself and have compassion for yourself, if you're going to make the change to heal from everything that's happened in your life. So for me, it was parenting, right? It was for,
Right.
and some people, their parenting journey is, I don't want to say easier because it's never easier. It's always hard, but
Right.
is less completely demolishing their life, right? So I like maybe something a death in the family happens later, and then that's when it comes out for them. So,
Right.
I might feel a little lucky that I came earlier, right? Like, I didn't
Right.
something else happened, so it
Sooner than later.
yeah, I had no choice. It was like it pushed me to the edge of like, okay, I have a choice. I can stay here forever and be miserable, or I can do something. So,
Right, right. I have a friend that we grew up together and she was kind of a wild child. She was that child that needed the connection. And
mhm,
like it's really interesting to see, and we've talked about these things and how her childhood was so different and now she's kind of like swung the opposite way, and becoming a mom just seemed like such a breeze for her. Like she was
yeah,
like all natural, everything. She stayed home. She's so like good with teaching and homeschooling and all the things. And then I'd be like, well, how come so many of these people like it levels them out? They're like, yes, now I've got it. This is my thing. And I've always wanted to be a mom. And then when it happened, and with my first, it was pretty good,
yeah,
aside from like my husband and I having like a lot of
growing
like he
challenges.
was working overnights
Yeah,
and stuff. So we had a lot of our own issues, like trying to get on the same page and, like fighting over what time needs to be spent where and all that stuff. But like as far as with my child, I had some postpartum depression, but we did good and I took her to the things and, whatever. And then my second came and we went into the pandemic and that was harder.
um,
She's a
challenging.
sensory seeker, so she was, wild. She's still just wild, but now I understand her better and have some
Yeah, yeah,
tools. And now my youngest, that was by far my worst postpartum, and she's 18 months now, and I was in such a dark place, and that's when I finally got to the point of, like, an ADHD diagnosis for me
yeah,
and my oldest. But,
yeah,
like, it's through all of that time, like, I was like, "Oh, I don't know why people need time away from their kids when I have my
yeah,
oldest." Like, I love
yeah,
being with her. And now that I've got 3, I'm like, "Please take them anywhere.
yeah.
Don't
That's why you're
care."
hiding in your closet right now.
I need silence just to, like, sit
Mhm.
and hear nothing or just zone out. And it
Yeah.
it it is one of those things, like, you see everyone handle it so differently,
Mhm.
and especially when that's all you've ever wanted. I never knew what I wanted to do in life, I just knew I wanted to be a mom,
Yeah.
and I'm like, That's my thing." And then when it gets there and it's
It's
not at
not
all
what
what I expected,
yeah.
like, I knew my kids would drive me crazy, and I used to say, "My kids are gonna drive me crazy in the best way," and they do, and they don't. Like, I also was just, like, off my
Yeah.
rocker for a while.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it's interesting and it's hard to not feel alone when everybody's experience is so unique to them. And even though we all have such similarities, they're also just so unique. It's hard to not feel alone when you don't have that validation or
Mhm.
like again, the support system. You guys know I'm obsessed with cycle breaking and boundary setting and healing and all the things, obviously. Well, nothing throws my healing journey into a freaking dumpster fire faster than a sensory overload, which happens often to me now that I'm aging. You know the feeling when your kids are asking you like 17 different questions at once? The baby is crying or just being fussy, and the dog's licking themselves, and the wind's blowing outside, and that's just too much. And the buzzer on the dryer goes off at the same time that your oven is ready, and that beeps at you. And you're just like in a full blown sprint towards a full fledged meltdown. You just need 5 seconds of quiet to reset, really. I used to just cover my ears, and honestly, some days I just wanted to run away and hide. But what if you didn't have to choose between hearing your kids and protecting your peace? What if you could turn the world's volume down without completely checking out of the conversations that you're trying to have? This is why I am aggressively encouraging you to get your own set of loop earplugs. They're not foam or like a weird plastic, they're discreet and a comfortable tool for literally building a sound boundary. I use the loop engage to get rid of the chaotic background noise and just take the edge off. They make the world go from a 10 down to a manageable 4 or 5 so that you can actually connect with your family without screaming or even listening in on other conversations. Hello, ADHD. Loop earplugs are a non negotiable step in building that safe and honest home. They are a tool for respecting your own sensory needs so that you can stop running on empty. You can go to the link in the show notes to get your own loop earplugs. Get them today and give yourself the grace of quiet. This is a simple life hack that helps the healing stick. Go do it. I know you said you wanted to escape and you never got to the point of like wanting to harm yourself, but can you speak a little bit more to the mental health side of it? Like how that was affecting you, feeling like that and going through those motions? How was that mentally affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is what pushed me towards that diagnosis because for my kid, that was like where we went first, right? For him,
Right.
I knew when he came out instinctually that he was special. You know what I mean? Like there was something
Right,
different
right,
about
right.
this guy. His eyes were wide open 2 seconds after he came out, and I was like, "Is that normal?" And they're like, "No, not really," you know. So I just for him, just I don't know that I would have sought this stuff on like the mental health side of it on my own per se. I had done therapy
Right.
and things in the past, but ADHD is such like a and postpartum depression, all of those. 'Cause I think I never got diagnosed with it, but I had elements of that. They're so taboo, right? Like people
Mm,
have a very specific view of what that looks like. And if you're in that box, then they think a certain way of you. And so there's
right.
like that overcoming that is like part of it, right? So I think having the catalyst of my son sort of having all these things and maybe questioning sometimes if I'm just making this up or not. We then had like a preschool teacher who told us, oh, okay, here's the challenges he's having at school. And that's what pushed us towards his diagnosis was having external people tell me, well, no, you're not crazy. This is actually happening. And then
Right.
getting his diagnosis was like, oh, okay, like all these little dots started connecting for myself where, the anxiety that I had, because I had anxiety as an adult as well. It was a comorbidity of ADHD, right? It was, and I don't even know if I would have had it had I not had untreated ADHD, right? Like, who knows? So it's just so interesting how things are interconnected and something can cause something else. And, what is our catalyst towards like pushing ourselves to actually seek a diagnosis or treatment or those kind of things. And the
Right.
difference, like, you don't even realize how like imprisoned you are by it when you're in that moment, right? Because it's overwhelming, but it's all you know. But
Right.
then on the other side of it, now I can look back and be like, wow, I'm so much more free now. And there's still challenges, obviously, but like
Right.
there's a different freedom about it openly talking about it, having actual medical professionals tell me that no, this is actually real stuff that's happening to you, and
Right.
you're not just making it up in your mind.
Right.
And then in turn, being able to help other people with it is super rewarding. And I guess if I'm talking to other people about this, I want them to know that there is hope on the other side if you take those first steps. And it could be a tiny baby step. It could
Hmm.
be just telling one person, hey, I'm struggling with these things. Can you help me brainstorm what my next step will be if it's too overwhelming for you, like reaching out and asking
Right.
for that help or something, right? Because being stuck in that place is just it's not living, right? It's not what we're meant to be. It's not our true self, our true personality coming out, right? Yeah.
That's a conversation I've had with some people, especially in my family, a lot of the medicines or the this or the that. And like they wanted to diagnose my sister when she was younger. And my dad's like, she's a kid. She's not going to just sit still. And
Yeah.
now she's got OCD and all these things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and the thing of it is like I don't have my daughter medicated, but I am medicated. And I
Yeah.
was looking for that. So mine's kind of the opposite. I was looking for me. And then I was like, does she have it? Or am I just trying to look for that diagnosis? Because people say like everyone just
Yeah.
needs a diagnosis. But it's so true. It's so like freeing to have
Yeah.
somebody say there's a reason and you don't feel so broken
Yeah.
in that. And
Mm.
I even notice it and like it's helped me with my daughter because I'm like when she does something, I'm like, yeah, she's behaving like her mom.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
she's trying to walk out of the house with no shoes. This is fine. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
girlfriend, where are your shoes? Like you just are gonna stroll out of the house, like go to gymnastics and not
Yeah.
put any shoes on. And I think that's a whole other part of the stigma too, is kids being medicated and like
Mhm.
when and when not to.
Yeah.
And so we homeschool. So I'm just trying to work on like giving her those tools. But it makes me wonder if
Yeah.
someone had taken it seriously enough to give me the tools, even if I didn't really have ADHD,
Yeah.
but those tools maybe helped me in certain areas, that could be so beneficial for our kids, for ourselves.
Yeah.
My life
Yeah.
would be totally different now if I knew then what I know now. And yeah, it's just it is one of those things like in the time you don't realize. Like
Mhm.
I just felt broken for like my whole life. Like why can't I just clean my house?
Yeah.
Why can't I just get it together? Why is it every time I take my kids out, I feel like it's the most taxing job just to get
Yeah.
everyone dressed
Yeah.
and go to the car. Like I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, those
And my therapist
transitions.
I didn't know you felt like that. I'm like, yes, everything feels like such a freaking job.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
energy it takes to do everything.
Yeah.
And before, like, I didn't think of it in terms of how much energy I was putting out to that, or like how my
Yeah.
brain thinks of the steps, or,
Yeah.
whatever. I
Beat
look at
yourself up about
myself.
it. Yeah,
What is
exactly.
wrong? Clean, like, or
Mhm.
help your kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and I don't think people realize when you don't have it, which is totally funny because I think my dad does have it, but he won't admit it. Like, when you
There's a
don't
genetic
have it, it's
element.
very hard. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very hard to really understand it, and I think that that's
Yes.
where that makes such a divide. Because
Yeah.
even my husband sometimes will be like, "Well, why don't you just do this?"
Yeah,
Or I'll tell
exactly.
"I really wanna do this, but I can't." And then he's like, "Well, just do it." And I'm like, "No, I can't." And he's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "It's I don't know." Or I'll be like, "Ha, that's a joke. I literally I want to, but it's
Yeah.
not happening."
It's not gonna happen. No, you can't that overcoming that hump to initiate a task initiation is so hard. And it does a lot of the ADHD symptoms come across as just, like, character flaws, right? Like,
Right,
that's the
right.
hard part
You're
for us.
lazy.
Exactly. Lazy or, like, emotional
Yeah.
or, like, you're not responsible, you lose all your stuff, like those
Flaky.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And I even just talk about what you talk about with your daughter, like, you're making her feel seen and for who she is because 'cause you're able to say, "You got it from me," and, like, you have some tools probably, so you're probably
Right.
sharing those with her and
Yeah.
just the difference that she'll have in her life because she can then hold on to that identity. And, the ADHD isn't the excuses to do everything in life, right? But it's
Right.
like, it helps us from just like a self-love, self-compassion perspective, right? To
100%.
understand that it is harder
Yeah.
for me to do some things and actually way easier to do other things because 'cause we're awesome at so many things, right?
Yeah. So I work as a para and I've volunteered for Girl Scouts and all the things. And I love business techie stuff. And I
Yeah,
just love it. And so
yeah,
people are like, man, how did you do that? And I'm like, oh, it's nothing. But
yeah,
I had heard another podcast of someone
yeah,
talking about that, where you think it's nothing, but people are like, wow, no,
exactly,
people
yeah,
get paid
mhm,
good money to do this or that. And I'm like, oh, well, to me, it just seems easy. So it can't be that big a deal. Anybody can do it. And they're like,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
not anybody.
yeah, yeah,
But so it is interesting, and that's how we worked on, like, her homeschool, finding the things that interest her because
yeah,
she's so smart when she is engaged. Other times
exactly,
she's just like,
mhm,
"Bleh," like, I can tell that, so we definitely try to, like, tailor those things for her,
yeah,
but
that makes sense.
even just modeling that, looking for the tools, if you don't have them yet, finding what works for you, I think
Yeah,
is so beneficial for our kids, and it's almost more of a blessing, I think, when we have kids who have ADHD or some type of neurodivergence, and their parent does too, because we get to model that for them of
yeah,
how we handle those challenges, so it's nice to have
yeah,
have both of us. We
100%.
actually got diagnosed a week apart.
Oh, look at that, that's
So
beautiful.
it was like a new journey for everybody.
Yeah.
So, how did your son being diagnosed shift your perspective on your personal struggles? Like,
Yeah,
how
I
were you
think
able to connect those dots?
well, my hyperfocus is ADHD, so that was I was like, "I'm
Oh,
gonna dive into this to the extreme," right? So and, the drive to figure his stuff out, like, I just started connecting the little dots between, like, some of the things that I had seen in him, because obviously it manifested differently in me growing up,
right.
and then just I went down the rabbit hole of, like, women and ADHD, and it just started connecting so many dots for me, like, all kinds of things, like the ability to finish tasks and have deadlines and finish them. I had always struggled with that, and like, always got out of it somehow, like, I
Right.
would wait till the last second, use that procrastination to knock out amazing stuff, and everybody be like, "Wow," but I, was anxiety ridden while doing it. Just like the little things that I had learned from him, like the symptoms, impulsivity, even the hyperactive brain, like I started making connections into I was like, people don't think like this. People aren't like having 7,000 thoughts at the same time. They're able to just be quiet in their brains. I was like, what is that? So
Right.
it just started making light bulbs go inside of me, like all these things that I had experienced that I just thought everyone was like, or again, I had attributed to me being like messed up or something like
Right.
it just felt true for me too, and it was very much, "Okay, let me seek this." I wanted the official diagnosis because also I wanted to try medication, but also just for the validation that,
Right.
again, I wasn't making it up because even now when I tell people, some people are like, "You don't have ADHD, like, what do you you're a
Right.
high achiever, like, you have done all these things, you know, you're not hyper."
Right.
Those are the kind of things that I'm like, "They're all
You can
different."
keep it together. I
Yeah.
actually had a counselor in college tell me, "You probably have ADHD, but we're not gonna diagnose you because you're handling it well." And then I left school for psychology to go to school to do hair. And now
Yeah.
I'm back to all the psych, brain science, parent
Yes.
coaching, and I'm like, "Was I really handling it well? Or
Exactly.
how
It's so
much
true.
different could it have been back then if you had just helped me with what I needed?"
So true. And for women, it's like such an internal struggle a lot of times and not external. So then everyone thinks we're doing fine because we're really good at masking it and
Right.
making everybody else feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But, and it's, I guess for little boys, it's more freeing because they just let it all hang out and do what they need to
Right.
do. Although there's, issues with their own self esteem when it comes to that because they're getting all these constant like reprimands. I'll be so interested to see like the research over the next
Oh,
decade
yeah.
on women and ADHD now that we have like a bigger uptick in women being diagnosed.
And later in life too. It's
Yeah.
like it's very interesting for sure. What was your experience when you were getting diagnosed? How did you go about it? And was there any kind of, oh man, like I can't believe I have this? Or was it all just like, oh, finally somebody can tell me what's going on here?
I mean, I think for me, no, I think it was very validating. That was like the biggest overarching emotion. I was a little bit like, yeah, the whole time I still had this imposter syndrome. Even during
Right.
like the testing, even when I got it, I was like, am I just, did he just give that to me because he felt like I needed it? Like, did the
Right.
psychologist give it to me because he felt bad for me? I still had that imposter syndrome inside of me where it was like, am I making this up? Right. Because I think nobody else talks about it. Nobody talked about it in my life. It wasn't something
Right.
that was brought up. I'm like the first person in my family who's really going to get these diagnoses, even though I
Right.
know I'm not the only one who probably has it. So I think it was validating, but then there's that other side of like the external world and their reactions to it. And that's
Right.
been sometimes challenging. It's been a journey of truly standing in my own confidence about it to realize, even with a medical diagnosis, I'm still questioning myself sometimes. So it's like pushing those doubts away and realizing like, no, like I can stand in this identity. I have this, and also I'm so much more than this. So
Right. We're
yeah.
also coming into holiday season.
Fun.
So I do want to touch on some of that because I think that that's such a tough time of year,
Yeah,
especially when you struggle with that. And often, like perfectionism is a trait of ADHD, like
yeah,
that. And that's probably partially the masking too, is like wanting things to be done a
yeah,
certain way to, I mean, sort of correct what you feel
yeah,
like is
exactly,
wrong.
yeah.
But how do you think that perfectionism contributes to the inadequacy or the imposter syndrome that we feel, especially in the holiday time, but in general, but also like with the holidays coming back?
I mean, first, I think, like, if we just take a higher level of, like, generally being a mom right now and a woman really, we have all this access to information, we have social media, and it's amazing and also toxic, right? Like, at the same
Mhm.
time, because sometimes we see the real side of things. We see people are being more honest and open about their experiences, and then that gives you a little bit of feeling like you don't have to be perfect. But then I also think there's just so much information out there that there's this impossible standard to have and do all the things. And especially like, this is supposed to be the most important job of your life as a mom, right? That should be the most important job.
Right.
So like I need to do this really well. Struggling with one of these things, then I must be messed up and broken, right? Like that is the feeling that I get. I think that will be sort of how I connect all those things is like the outside world making me feel like I need to be perfect. My own brain, like I just think that's how our brains work. We're always looking for the most efficient way to do things. Maybe it's
Right.
because we don't want to do things because we don't have patience, right? Like
Right.
maybe that's part of it. Maybe there's just things driving that idea of trying to have things be the most efficient, the most perfect side of things. For me, it's been a long journey to come from that to realize like, no, like we are exactly who our kids need. We're
Right.
enough. We don't need to be these Pinterest moms,
Yeah.
And also, I think the other side is like we're also worth getting healthy for, not necessarily just for our kids, that we don't have to be this perfect person, that we can let go of all these beliefs that we have where we can be free, that we do it for ourselves too. Our needs are
Uh,
important. Going back to what you talked about earlier with like,
yeah.
we always put our needs last, but in reality, if we're going to do this for ourselves, if we're going to give ourselves that grace, if we're going to really heal from the inside out, then we're going to show up in a healthy way and not just in a way to put up a front like everybody wants to see this version of yourself.
Right.
Not forcing ourselves to be a certain way and trying to will ourselves into being good enough, right?
Right.
It's almost like breaking down that identity issue we're having and rebuilding it back up with our own beliefs that we're enough, you know?
I was recording another podcast and we were talking about wanting to show up in a way that's for other people. Like you have to be able to want to do it for yourself because if you don't, if you're
Yeah.
just saying, I'm going to heal and I'm going to do better for my kids, then you're not really fully open to it. And you
Yeah.
have to want to do it for yourself because otherwise you're going to be like, oh, I can do this for an external source. And so it really limits you until you're in that place and you're ready to do that for you.
Yeah.
You're only going to get so far. And I think that's really important to touch on.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that's part of that perfectionism, right? Like, when you wanna do it for yourself and you're giving yourself the grace and the self-compassion, then that's giving you the freedom to let go of that perfectionism, right? Like, your
Right.
kids don't need you to be perfect. They don't even want you to be perfect, right?
Right.
Sometimes we learn more when we're not perfect and we show
Right.
them how to handle the non-perfection, right? They learn more through that
Yeah,
avenue than us being perfect all the time. Yeah.
absolutely. Thinking about having ADHD and having a child with ADHD and going through the holidays, a lot of sensory overload can come with that. And
That's
even
true.
though, like you said, your oldest is very sensory seeking, there's still often a lot of times, especially with
Yeah.
family members and running around all day. If you go to like
Mhm.
multiple Thanksgivings or Christmases or whatever, for one, how can ADHD make that magnified, those sensory overloads, like all the usual things?
Yeah.
How is ADHD contributing to making that harder?
Yeah.
And then do you have any strategies for people going through that holiday season on how to kind of minimize that sensory overload?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, because I have 3 kids, they all have their own
Right.
unique sensory needs, right? Like,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
I got some sensory avoiders in my house too, for sure. I think also for the sensory seekers, there's this fine line between overstimulation and
Mhm.
understimulation, and, like, you're like, "Which side am I on?" 'Cause sometimes the reactions are the same, right, if they're over or
Mhm.
understimulated. So, for sure, that contributes to a lot of it, right, when you're in
Right.
these situations. I think from a strategy perspective, I think the first thing is being confident in your parenting and your boundaries, right? Like, when you're coming into a situation with family especially, I feel like there's this pressure sometimes to feel like you need to accommodate everything that they want in those
Right.
moments. You know, you have to give a hug to every single family member. You have to do all these things. Like, you need to
Yep.
sit at the table for the entire time. Like, you need to open up every gift and everyone watches you and say thank you. So I think
Every food.
exactly. So I think going in, the first step in my mind is having my own confidence. Like, here's what I'm going to allow. Here's what I'm not going to allow. Here's where I know from just knowing my kid, he's going to do well in this situation. If I see it going off the rails, what is my plan? So sometimes I would take my oldest, I would take him separately to a separate room and we would just calm down and like have some moments to decompress from everything that was happening. I tried to do it before he went into a meltdown, but sometimes after the
Right.
meltdown, right? And trying to do it in a way where it's not making him feel shame for having that
Right.
happen, right? That like explaining like, "Hey, this is overwhelming for anybody, but especially you." So it's I think having my own confidence and my own boundaries around sort of where, where I need to step in, where I can let him sort of figure it out a little bit. And then I think on the other side, and it depends on your family situation, but like advocating for them, right? So coming
Right.
in before with your family and being like, "Hey, here's the deal. This is what we are able to do. Here's what we're not able to do. Can we maybe like switch this one thing up so that they're less stimulated? Can we do this? Can we do that?" Or even just like setting a standard and being like, "This is what's going to happen."
Right.
And I understand that may not be what you expected. So like giving them space to process that, but at the same time, still knowing what your kid needs and advocating for that's important. So there's like an element of grieving certain things. Like there's certain things I just know that we won't do with our kids. We just won't.
Right.
And other people will probably do them and that's fine. And there's a period where I felt bad about that. Like, oh my gosh, why can't my kids just do this, and this? But like now I'm like,
Right.
there's lots we can do where it's a positive. We don't have to do everything. For us, we had gone to 2 family houses in the same day and we had to set a boundary. Like we can't do that. That's too much.
Okay.
That's too much for me and I'm an adult. So it's way too much for kids. Or like we're not gonna go see this one big event because I just know it's gonna be too much for them. So we
Right.
just won't do it and that's fine.
Yeah, we started implementing like rotating holidays because like most of the time we go to like my sister's or my house. So we started implementing because we were going to like 3 Thanksgivings in a day,
Yeah.
even like when she was little, like my oldest was
Mhm.
little. And so we just started saying, okay, we're just going to rotate it on the day. And then if somebody else wants to have something too, we'll do that on a different day and they'll just
Yeah.
get like the weekend holiday or whatever when we
Yeah.
plan that. And that significantly helped us. Also talking to them prior, like if you could give a tip on how to most effectively communicate that to family.
Yeah.
That.
Well, I guess first off, nonviolent communication, right? Like that,
Mhm.
the idea behind you observe what's happening, you make your feelings known, your need, and then you make the request. I think if you come in there with a sense of I'm not attacking you, I'm not trying to attack, because I think that's where it can go sometimes with family,
Right.
especially if we have family where our communication hasn't always been healthy. Planning before you're coming in to be like, I have observed that, or I've noticed that
Right.
this is what happens with my kid. He loses his mind if he's forced to sit at the table, or if he has to sit at the table for like this amount of, so we're gonna do this. My feeling about it is this. What's your feeling? Like giving them space to sort of process that and understanding that maybe in the end you may not get, full compliance about it. But if I am, I guess, grounded and holding respect for them when I'm talking about it, then that's really all I can do, right? I can come, and as long as I'm not being accusatory and as long as I'm not, just calling out things negatively, then I think that would be sort of how I approach it. And then even, I think being prepared is always the most helpful thing. Like
Right.
practicing that before you come in and have those conversations. And then even practicing how am I going to handle it when I'm in that situation? Because you
Right.
might get comments back about things. You might get
Right.
explosion. So how am I gonna
Yeah.
ground myself and keep myself cool in these moments? Like, what is
Right.
my even my kid's gonna have a meltdown. What's my meltdown avoidance or my
Yeah.
meltdown sensory calming tools, right? Like, what are my
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say, yeah, like, I think when you come to it from a place of being grounded, it makes
yeah,
it much easier when and if somebody there's usually somebody who's gonna push back, especially
yeah,
in this day and age, we're still in that I hate to say it in the slang term, but that, like, boomer mentality versus, like, the newer kind of
yeah,
styles of parenting, and so there tends to always be a comment from somebody, but when you come to it from a grounded space, it makes it much easier for you to say, okay, well, if this isn't where you want to go with that, then we're going to choose to step back out of that and do it in a
yeah,
respectful way where it's not
yeah,
like, well, you're not listening, and have a
yeah,
big explosion.
exactly.
It's because you're grounded enough to say, this is what we expect. If you don't want to respect that boundary, then we are going to choose to
Yeah.
not participate or whatever. And it makes that confrontation a little bit smoother.
And even I think giving some space to have like a back and forth solutioning as well.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's my thoughts. Do you have any thoughts how we can make this work? Here's the needs. Like, so I don't know. I think
Yeah.
having the back and forth and giving them the space sometimes helps.
Yeah.
And
More
going back to what I said
collaboration.
previously, it's like you need to come in knowing what you're confident in as a parent. Like it's
Right.
been a long journey for me. I did not feel like that at the beginning during those 8 years of chaos, right? And I think
Right.
finally getting to that point, partly because I'm seeing my like this long-term parenting that we're doing, right? I'm seeing the
Right.
results of it. I'm seeing my kids literally problem solve with each other in the moments in like conflict sometimes. I'm seeing my kids come and apologize to me before I even say anything about what happened. I'm
Right.
seeing them use tools to go regulate with
Right.
some of the things we've worked on instead of losing their mind, right? So I'm like, wow, I'm like, they're more mature than me. Like, this is amazing. So I'm confident going in that, like, and I wasn't always like that. So it was different in the past with holidays. But now it's like, I know my kids are good, man. They're probably going to have a meltdown, and that's fine
Yeah.
because we're not perfect, right? And
Yeah.
here's how we're going to handle it. And I'm not going to allow anybody else to put shame on them. So I'm going to handle it in a way that makes sense. And sometimes I still fail, but like
Right.
that's the goal, right? So,
Yeah, it's more than having your kids back, it's having your own back and knowing that you don't need somebody else to
yeah,
tell you how it should be done. You know your family better than anybody else. So
so true. We all
you get to make that decision, not anyone else.
and that also gives me perspective also when thinking about other families and, like, if I'm around other people. Like, I think having going through this life, it gives me less judgment, right? When I walk into a situation to know I don't know their family situation, and so I need to respect what they're doing as long as everyone's safe.
For the moms who do have ADHD or just get overstimulated in general with the holidays and being around family, what kind of self-care practices do you recommend for them to go a little smoother through the holidays?
I mean, I think, like, if you think about, like, long-term kinda stuff, I think it's a little bit of a journey to get to that point because
Right.
everybody has different things that work for them, and you have to just like muscles, you have to, like, work them. You have to practice before you get into a situation and understand where your triggers are, what your body's feeling like in those moments, and be able to have that understanding of, "Okay, my, like, thermometer's rising, and I feel like my body's going here. I know I've practiced this 5 times," and so for me, like, honestly, I rub my thighs. That's, like, the sensory thing for me.
Yeah.
That's one of my things that I know, like, okay, I almost feel like a lot of it is, like, the work before you do before you get into the
Right.
situation, right? Like
If you're starting like
yeah,
someone just listened to this and they're just starting
mhm,
now on their journey, it might be more of a as you go through these holidays, knowing it's going to be a
yes,
stressor, kind of paying attention to those things and really figuring out your triggers first as your self care
yeah.
rather than having actual practices yet?
Yeah, I'd say that's part of it. I mean, if like there could be sensory stuff. Like for me, I have
Right.
noise canceling headphones. So I like, or
Mhm.
the little loop earplugs. I stick those in. And if I know it's going to be loud, then I put those in for a period of time. And then that immediately brings my nervous system into a better state. Maybe if you're sensitive to sound, make sure you have some earplugs, maybe build in some breaks during the time you're there. So like, even if it's just 5 minutes in a different room or in the bathroom, right? Like where you
Right.
think it might be a little more quiet, give yourself a little bit of that self care. And then I think also, I heard someone describe it like this: like when you have two islands, and your old island is like the old way of doing things, like that's what
Mhm.
you normally are used to, and it has really great infrastructure, really nice bathrooms, all kinds of stuff. And then you're building your new island, which is like the new way of handling things, maybe not losing your mind when sensory things happen, or understanding your needs and being able to build them up. And that one has like a porta potty, right? So you're on this porta potty island, and you come back into your family situation, and that beautiful island with all of the infrastructure is there. So it's easy to just jump back into that island because it's just so nice and built up. So that's why I say with the journey, like you have to keep building that infrastructure on that new island with your new, belief systems, your new confidence in yourself, healing old patterns, practicing your skills before you get into it, so that it's a little stronger and more appealing to stay on that new island.
Right.
Like
Right,
that
because that toilet might look nice, but it might back up all the time.
is so true. So true. Exactly. So it's, you hope that eventually you won't swim back to the old island as much because you have built up these tools, but giving yourself grace to know that if you do swim back to the old island, it happens, right? You can repair, like you can fix whatever happened by repairing, by apologizing if you did something, by figuring out a new strategy next time and reflecting. So it's not like, the end of the world, right? Like give
Right.
yourself grace. Don't put this pressure, perfectionism, like you have to be perfect, and celebrate those little wins. Like if you only lost your mind twice during this, so holiday, instead of on this during this day, or instead of 10 times, that's like a big deal, or even if
Right.
it's 9 instead of 10, like that's something to celebrate. And next year you can go for 8, right? So
Right. And I think it's important to note too, because you said you have the loop earplugs, which I ordered some like knockoff brands, so I'd still like to try the regular ones, but I feel suffocated when I
really.
have
Yeah,
earplugs
exactly.
in. I feel like I am
Yeah.
just because for me, I think that's also part of my trauma though. I am like hyper vigilant. I need to hear the things going on, but if it's too much noise, I have to like
Yeah,
turn stuff down.
got
But
it.
I feel like I'm just like I take my dogs on a walk in the
Yeah,
morning, and I was like, this is gonna be a great time to like listen to music, listen to podcasts, wake up,
yeah,
whatever
you
I want to
can't.
do.
Yeah,
I can't put headphones in. Like
yeah.
I can't wear them on the outside or the inside. So I started like
Mhm.
putting them around my neck to play music, but I can't do it because I have to be like so aware of all the things going around me all the time.
Yeah,
So it's important to note that because something
yeah,
that works for somebody else may not work for you, and that doesn't mean that
exactly.
that's a problem either. It just means you have to find something different,
So true.
because that's a whole other thing of what's wrong with me. These people with
Exactly. Yeah.
ADHD say that this works great. Why
Yeah,
can't I use that?
exactly.
Right?
So, yeah, it's a trial and error, and like you said, like,
Yeah.
having the hope that, like, okay, this someone doesn't work, something else will work, and it has nothing to do with you, it has just to do with life, right? Like, it's just everyone's different, and that's okay that everyone has different needs, so good point there.
If there's just like one thing you could tell them to take away from this podcast, if they take nothing else from
Yeah.
this, what would you say that they should take away?
Just know that you are not broken for feeling overwhelmed with things. You're exactly who your kids need. It's not you. It's just hard. Just that, like you're enough, and that you can reach out to people. I think like you had said earlier, it's hard when no one's going through the exact same experience, but it's worth trying to like put your story out there, because at some point you may find someone who really resonates with that. And then, you don't want to do this alone. Like you don't want to just sit alone in those terrible feelings and never feeling understood. It's not you. The world is messed up and you're doing the best you can. And guess what? If it's really hard right now, then that just means that you only have up to go, right? Like it can be
Mhm.
less hard next time. If you're at the rock bottom, you only can go up from there.
So good. Okay, I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast, my beginning of my podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Ground floor, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I have my website is www.theguidingwell.com. You can email me at ashley@theguidingwell.com as well. So those are the two best places, easy places to find me.
Them, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes for anyone who
Awesome.
wants to find you. But thank you again so much. This was such a fun conversation.
No, it has been fun.
Alrighty, friend, that is it for today's episode. And if you needed this, same, truly. If this episode hit home for you, share it with another mom who's in the trenches right now. We are building a community, one that many of us never had, and your voice helps so much more than you know. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on what's coming next. And if you feel like leaving a review, I mean, I won't say no. All right, babe, take a breath, drink some water, give yourself some grace, and I will catch you on the next episode. Keep reclaiming yourself and your family, one messy, magical step at a time.